Drawing simple icons in XD is quick and easy using combinations of the drawing tools, including the rectangle tool, ellipse tool, line tool, and the pen tool. I can do even more by incorporating Boolean operators to add, subtract, intersect, and exclude overlapped shapes. I'll recreate some of the icons used in my Final Ginchy sample file to demonstrate. Here, I'll create two icons using only the drawing tools. I start the search or magnifying glass icon by grabbing the ellipse tool, clicking and dragging. By holding the Shift key, I constrain the shape to a circle. By adding the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows, I can also constrain the shape from the center. I hit Escape to deselect the circle and grab the Line tool. I use guides that appear to the lower right of the circle and align my cursor. I click once and drag down and to the right and hold the Shift key to constrain my line to 45 degrees. I let go when it's the length I want and nudge the line a little closer to the circle by using my up arrow and left arrow keys. Next, I'll draw the profile or person icon. I do this by grabbing the rectangle tool, clicking and dragging out a shape. Next, I hold Option on Mac or Alt on Windows and click the handle just inside the top left corner. I drag it inwards to give it a corner radius, and I do the same thing in the upper right corner. Without holding Option or Alt, all four corners would change. Then I grab the ellipse tool, move it over the torso, look for the guide that tells me my cursor is centered, and draw another constrained circle for the head. Once again, I'll nudge it up until it's properly positioned. I grab the Select tool and drag over all of the shapes. In the Property Inspector, I click the Border Fill swatch, choose White, and adjust the border width to 2. With the Select tool still chosen, I hold the Shift key and click on the Search tool handle to deselect it because it doesn't have a fill color. Then I go to the Property Inspector and uncheck Fill to make the center of these other shapes transparent. Here I'll imitate drawing these two social icons by using basic shapes plus Boolean operators. First, I'll draw the camera on the left. I'll begin by drawing a rectangle from the center of the gradated circle. I'll hold Shift Option on Mac or Shift Alt on Windows to constrain it to a square drawn from the center. Next, I'll go to the Property Inspector and type 8 next to the selected option, Same Radius for All Corners. Then I'll grab the Ellipse tool, align it with the center guides, and create a circle. Then I'll draw a second smallest circle in the upper right-hand corner of the square. I'll hold the Shift key and click on the larger circle in the square so all three shapes are selected. Then I'll click on the Boolean operator Subtract. This cuts donut-like holes of the top shapes through the bottom shape. Then I turn off the borders in the Property Inspector. To finish up, I draw one more white circle on top of the center donut hole. Boolean operators group objects automatically. In order to group this last circle with the other shapes, I shift-click on them with the Select tool. Then I right-click and choose Group, which will make it easy for me to move and modify this icon later. I'll follow similar steps to create the next icon. I begin by drawing a rectangle from the center of the blue circle. Once again, I hold Shift Option on Mac or Shift Alt on Windows to constrain my rectangle to a square drawn from the center. This time I'll drag a corner handle to add a radius to all four corners. I grab the Select tool and click the outlined letter form. Then I right-click and choose Bring to Front to make sure it's above the last square I drew, and I drag it on top. I shift-click to select them both and choose the Boolean operator Exclude Overlap. Note, because Boolean operations are non-destructive, I can double-click on the F to select it and then reposition it. Icons or illustrations can also be brought in from applications like Illustrator and Photoshop. Here, I've dragged and dropped an SVG created in Illustrator into XD, and it is fully editable. That's a good thing, because I see it doesn't have the same cross-hatching used in the first two product illustrations on this featured artist page. To fix this, I select the illustration and ungroup it. Then I select the shape I want changed and drag it to the right to isolate it. Next, I draw one hatch line and duplicate it using Repeat Grid. I extend it so the repeated hatching covers the whole shape. I then right-click on it and choose Send to Back. I grab the shapes in front and change its fill to white to match the other illustrations. Then I shift-click on the repeat grid so both the shape and the hatchings are selected. Then I choose Object Mask with Shape. When the masking is finished, I select the hatched shape and drag it back. Masks can be used on photos as well. Here I'll drag in a profile image, draw a square on top of it, Select both items and choose Object, Mask with Shape. As with Boolean operators, symbols, and repeat grids, objects in a mask are automatically grouped. By double-clicking on the mask, you have access to its contents. So you can now select either the square or the photograph and edit them separately. If you grab the grouped mask, you can modify the shapes together. And finally, Image Fill lets you add an image directly into a shape by dragging and dropping it in. Notice the image is automatically scaled and cropped to best fit the container's dimensions. While you can't scale the image independently, XD makes image adjustments automatically as the container is modified. Be sure to watch the next tutorial in this Adobe XD Getting Started lesson.